Something is happening in the technology world right now that does not make the front pages, does not get the breathless launch day coverage, does not appear in the consumer press the way a new iPhone or a Windows announcement does, and yet it is reshaping every layer of modern computing in a way that nothing else has in 30 years. Linux is taking over, not threatening to take over, not on a trajectory toward taking over someday. It is taking over right now, in real time, across every domain that actually matters. And the numbers behind that statement are so comprehensive, so consistent, and so completely at odds with the narrative that Linux is a niche operating system for technical hobbyists, that once you see them laid out in full, you will not be able to unsee them. This is not a story about Linux beating Windows on the desktop. It never was. This is a story about an operating system that quietly, methodically, over 3 decades, without a single marketing campaign targeted at ordinary consumers, without a flashy annual release event, without a subscription fee or corporate mandate, became the foundation that the entire modern world runs on. And it is now accelerating so fast in so many directions simultaneously that the question is not whether Linux wins. The question is how much of what remains is left to win. Let us start with the numbers that most people have genuinely never been told. Because the way the technology press covers operating systems is almost entirely focused on the consumer desktop. And the consumer desktop is the one place where Linux has historically been weakest. If you only look at that one metric, you get a misleading picture. So instead, let us look at every layer of computing where Linux actually operates, starting at the very top, 100%. Every single one of the 500 most powerful supercomputers on Earth runs Linux. Everyone, without exception. This has been true continuously since November 2017, and the margin has only grown since. The machine that currently sits at the top of that list, El Capitan at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in the United States, achieves 1,742 petaflops of computing power. That is 1.742 exaflops, a scale of computation that is almost impossible to meaningfully describe in human terms. And it runs Linux, as does the machine ranked second and third, and all 500. Now go from the most powerful computers in the world to the internet itself. Over 96% of the top 1 million web servers on Earth run Linux. When you load any major website, any of them, you are in almost every case communicating with Linux on the other end. The infrastructure that streams your video, processes your payments, serves your social media content, delivers your email, runs your cloud storage, powers your search results, it is built on Linux. This is not a preference or a philosophical choice by idealistic engineers. It is the verdict of every organization that has ever had to keep a system running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, at any meaningful scale, and had the technical freedom to choose what that system runs. They chose Linux, and the results speak for themselves in 30 years of unbroken server dominance. Linux holds 44.8% of the entire server operating system market. Windows Server holds around 30%. On web servers specifically, Linux's dominance is even more complete, over 96% of the top 1 million. That is not a competitive market. That is a settled one. Move to the cloud. Linux powers 49.2% of global cloud workloads as of Q2 2025. And that figure represents the overall number when you look at public cloud infrastructure specifically, across Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform, the 3 providers that collectively control 63% of the cloud infrastructure market. Linux's share of their underlying infrastructure is 90%. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google all run their cloud services predominantly on Linux. The operating system that Microsoft charges users a license fee to run on their personal computers is not the operating system that Microsoft uses to run its own data centers. That is the business model in plain terms. The cloud market generated $99 billion in quarterly revenue in Q2 2025. A 25% year-over-year increase. Linux is the engine of virtually all of it. Developers, the people who build the technology that everyone else uses, have made their choice too, and it is not subtle. The Stack Overflow Developer Survey 2025 found that 78.5% of developers worldwide report using Linux either as a primary or secondary operating system. 27.8% use Ubuntu specifically for personal projects, and 27.7% use it professionally. Among DevOps teams, the engineers responsible for building and running production infrastructure, 68.2% use Linux as their primary platform. 90.1% of cloud-native developers prefer Linux-based environments for building and deploying applications. The people who make the software that the world depends on have already voted with their tool chains. They work in Linux, they test in Linux, they deploy to Linux, and they build the systems that you interact with every single day on Linux. The consumer desktop is the last holdout in a battle that everywhere else is already over. Now let us talk about mobile, because this is where Linux's reach becomes truly planetary in scale. Android. The operating system that runs on approximately 70 to 85% of all smartphones worldwide, depending on which dataset you consult, runs on the Linux kernel. Every Android device is a Linux device. Every Samsung Galaxy, every Google Pixel, every OnePlus, every Xiaomi, every device from every Android manufacturer on every continent. Between 3 and 3.5 billion people are running Linux in some form right now, including every person who has ever picked up an Android phone. When measured by the total number of active devices rather than the desktop market share statistic that most people associate with the operating system conversation, Linux is not an alternative. It is the most widely used computing platform on Earth. There is a specific event that happened on October 14, 2025, that changed the consumer desktop conversation more directly and more immediately than anything that had happened in years. Microsoft ended mainstream security support for Windows 10. Not an obscure version, not a niche edition. The version of Windows that was running on somewhere in the region of hundreds of millions of personal computers. After that date, those devices stopped receiving free security updates from Microsoft. The options available to Windows 10 users were narrow. Upgrade to Windows 11 if their hardware met the requirements, pay for Microsoft's Extended Security Updates program as a temporary bridge, buy new hardware, or look for an alternative. And Windows 11's hardware requirements are strict. TPM2, 0, Secure Boot, and supported CPU families gate a significant number of computers out of the upgrade path entirely. Perfectly functional hardware, machines that run smoothly, do everything their owners need, have no reason to be replaced, suddenly cannot upgrade to the current supported Windows version without a hardware purchase or a workaround that Microsoft does not officially sanction. Zorin OS developers reported over 780,000 Windows users transitioning to Linux in the direct aftermath of the Windows 10 end-of-life announcements. Zorin OS is a single distribution that figures from one Linux project among hundreds. The Linux desktop market share has been climbing from 3.72% in January 2025. The United States crossed the 5% threshold for desktop Linux for the first time in history in June 2025. The CrowdStrike incident of July 2024 added another layer to the conversation that the industry has not finished processing. On July 19, 2024, a single faulty configuration update from the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike caused 8.5 million Windows computers to crash simultaneously in what Wikipedia has described as the largest outage in the history of information technology. Airlines could not operate. Hospitals canceled procedures. Banks went offline. Broadcasters went to dead air. Airports reverted to handwriting boarding passes. Emergency services were disrupted. The total financial damage has been estimated in the tens of billions of dollars. The critical technical detail, documented in Wikipedia's own article on the incident, is that computers running Mac OS and Linux were entirely unaffected. The problematic content file was specific to Windows. 8.5 million Windows machines failed simultaneously. 0 Linux machines failed from the same cause. France's National Cybersecurity Agency, ANSSI, cited exactly this type of systemic risk, the danger of depending on a single proprietary software stack that can cascade into simultaneous failure across millions of machines, as part of the security rationale for its government-wide Linux migration announced in April 2026. When your entire national digital infrastructure runs on one vendor's operating system, one bad update is not a localized problem. It is a global emergency. And that word, sovereignty, is now driving the most consequential government technology decisions on the planet. In April 2026, France's Interministerial Digital Directorate, DINUM, ordered every government ministry to formalize a plan to eliminate dependencies on non-European digital infrastructure. The directive covers operating systems, collaborative tools, cloud infrastructure, and artificial intelligence platforms. It starts with DINUM's own workstations, switching from Windows to Linux. It follows France's January 2026 mandate to replace Microsoft Teams and Zoom with a domestically developed open-source platform across 2.5 million civil servants by 2027. The proof of concept that makes this announcement credible rather than aspirational is France's national police force, the Gendarmerie Nationale, which launched its own custom Ubuntu-based Linux distribution called Genbuntu in 2008, following a phased transition that began in 2004. By June 2024, Genbuntu ran on 103,164 workstations, 97% of the force's entire computing estate. The project saves approximately 2 million euros per year in licensing costs alone and has reduced the total cost of ownership by an estimated 40%. Germany's state of Schleswig-Holstein reported saving over 15 million euros in licensing costs in 2026 alone, money previously flowing to Microsoft every year. After completing approximately 80% of its migration to LibreOffice and open-source tools across 30,000 government workstations. Denmark's Ministry of Digital Affairs completed its own transition. Austria's military is pursuing the same direction. The pattern is not isolated national experiments. It is a coordinated European shift driven by sovereignty, security, and the documented financial reality that open source infrastructure costs dramatically less at scale over time. Now let us talk about the domain that most people would have considered Linux's greatest weakness just 5 years ago, gaming. For decades, the argument against Linux on the desktop began and ended with gaming. Windows had the games, Windows had the APIs. Windows had the anti-cheat systems. Windows was where you gamed, and that was the end of the discussion. Valve changed this. The Steam Deck, Valve's handheld gaming PC, launched in 2022, runs SteamOS, which is built on Arch Linux. Every Steam Deck that ships is a Linux computer. IDC estimates approximately 5.6 million units shipped by mid-2025. The Steam Deck held 48% of the tracked handheld gaming PC market in 2024. But beyond the hardware, Valve invested heavily in a compatibility layer called Proton, built on Wine with gaming-specific enhancements, that translates DirectX and Windows-specific API calls into open standards that Linux can execute. As of November 2025, Proton makes approximately 106,000 of Steam's 117,881 games playable on Linux. That is a 12 times expansion of the playable Linux catalog through compatibility rather than porting. Without Proton, roughly 9,000 games ran natively on Linux. With Proton, over 106,000 do, and 89% of the 150,000 plus games tested on Steam by the ProtonDB community now work on Linux through Proton. Linux gaming share on Steam went from approximately 1% in 2015 to 3.05% in October 2025. The first time in Steam's history it had cleared 3%, and then to 5.33% in March 2026, which was an all-time record. Fornix noted that October 2025's 3% represented the best figures ever recorded in absolute terms, given the Steam platform's vastly larger user base compared to when it launched for Linux. When Steam recorded 41.6 million concurrent users in October 2025, each percentage point of Linux share represented approximately 400,000 peak concurrent players. These are not small numbers. The important technical context for anti-cheat is that this was the last major barrier Linux gaming faced, and it has been substantially addressed. Easy Anti-Cheat and BattlEye, the two most widely used anti-cheat systems, both now offer Linux-compatible modes that developers can opt into to allow their games to run under Proton. The remaining challenge is not technical impossibility, it is developer opt-in. The difference between a game that works on Linux and one that does not often comes down to whether the publisher has enabled the existing Proton-compatible anti-cheat path, a business and policy decision, not an engineering barrier. As more publishers observe 5.33% of Steam users running Linux and calculate what that percentage means in absolute player numbers, the incentive to enable that opt-in grows. The broader AI infrastructure revolution has added another dimension to Linux's dominance that simply cannot be overstated. The artificial intelligence explosion, the large language models, the training infrastructure, the inference clusters, the GPU farms, the data centers being built at unprecedented scale by OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and every organization trying to build AI capability runs on Linux. Every GPU cluster running model training, every inference server, every data center node. The AI revolution is being built on Linux. When TechCrunch reported in April 2026 that France's digital minister David Amiel said the government can no longer accept that it does not have control over its own data and digital infrastructure, when he used the phrase, regain control of our digital destiny, he was describing the same reality that engineers discovered decades ago at the server level, and that is now playing out at the national government level. The entity that controls the operating system controls the data, the update schedule, the security patches, the pricing, and ultimately the leverage. Linux gives that control back to whoever runs it. The Linux operating system market was valued at $21.97 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach $99.69 billion by 2032, a compound annual growth rate of 20.9%. The server OS market stands at $22.28 billion in 2025 and is expected to reach $34.12 billion by 2030. The Docker container market, which runs predominantly on Linux, is growing from $6.12 billion in 2025 to a projected $16.32 billion by 2030. Kubernetes holds 92% of container orchestration market share, and 78% of Kubernetes clusters run on Linux. 72.6% of Fortune 500 companies run mission-critical workloads on Linux. Banking and financial services increased their Linux infrastructure footprint by 21.5% year over year. Government data centers worldwide report 64.9% Linux adoption. These numbers do not describe a challenger operating system. They describe the operating system that already runs the world's most critical infrastructure and is expanding its reach into every remaining domain. Here's what makes this particular moment different from every previous moment when people said Linux was about to break through and then it did not. The convergence of forces happening simultaneously in 2025 and 2026 has never existed before. Windows 10's end of life forced hundreds of millions of users to make a platform decision with real urgency. Windows 11's hardware requirements orphaned a significant fraction of otherwise functional computers, creating an opening that did not exist before. Valve's Steam Deck proved that a mainstream consumer product could ship on Linux and succeed commercially. Proton made the gaming objection to Linux substantially obsolete. Government mandates in France, Germany, and Denmark created institutional momentum that validates Linux as a serious platform for large-scale deployment to non-technical users. The CrowdStrike incident made the systemic risk of Windows monoculture visible in a way that no argument had previously managed. AI infrastructure demands have locked Linux in as the operating system of the most important new computing frontier, and desktop market share is growing at a rate, 70% in 3 years globally, crossing 5% in the United States for the first time ever. That represents genuine acceleration rather than noise. None of this means Windows is disappearing tomorrow. Windows remains the dominant desktop operating system for ordinary consumers and for enterprise environments deeply invested in Windows-specific software. That reality is not in dispute. What is in dispute is the narrative that Linux is a niche, a hobby, a technical curiosity for people who enjoy configuring their terminal. That narrative was never accurate at the server level. It was never accurate at the cloud level. It was never accurate at the supercomputer level. It was never accurate at the mobile level. It was never accurate at the developer level. And in 2025 and 2026, it is ceasing to be accurate at the last level where it still had some legitimacy, the consumer desktop and the gaming ecosystem. Linus Torvalds started the Linux kernel in 1991 as a personal project and posted about it on a university mailing list. He described it as just a hobby and said it would not be big and professional like GNU. 35 years later, that hobby powers the most powerful computers ever built, runs the internet, serves as the foundation of nearly half the world's cloud workloads, powers the smartphones of over 3 billion people, runs the nuclear research facilities, the financial trading systems, the government ministries, the space programs, and is now, for the first time in its history, accelerating at the consumer level too. Nobody can stop this. The question was never whether Linux would take over. It already has. The rest of the world is just catching up to a reality that the engineers who build the actual infrastructure of modern civilization have known for decades.